So much blood spilled, so far away from home. But why? To understand that, we need to go back in time, all the way back to the beginning. This all started in 278 BC, a time that would later be known as the Aegean Wars. We, the Athenians, were a client state of the decrepit Macedonians ruling from Pella. This was a status below our dignity, especially as we had ambitions of a second age of Hellenic colonization. But despite the vulnerable state of the Macedonians, we didn't have the ability to declare independence just yet. We had to regain the strength we once had. We had to secure control over the Aegean. So, under supervision of the statesman Isocrates, new triaries were set to be constructed, with our archon Cremonides hiring all the available mercenaries to further establish a formidable army to enact Athenian will wherever we went. Research-wise, we set our minds towards naval innovation both militarily and commercially. We needed to pay for all this somehow, you know. Hence, we established trade with various nations across the Greek world. But that's about it. No non-aggression pacts or anything. Because trade with various nations will only be a realistic goal if we remain neutral in any major wars to come. Besides, we don't really have the resources to make an impact anyway, so why bother? Nevertheless, this was a time of expansion. Once our Athenian coffers found itself edging towards a deficit, we set sail. If we wanted hegemony over the Aegean, one of the best places to begin our expansion was at Crete, an island which military power usually consists of mercenaries, whom you know on this occasion already have been enlisted into our service. So with quite a sizable army, we initiated our assault from both land and sea, a decision that proved to be vital in our success. The Cretans definitely didn't expect our ships to roll into their port, as it was practically unguarded. But we wouldn't land right away. We waited on that till our hoplite forces reached the walls, and our cavalry made it into the streets. These factors made our assault a three-directional attack. Our hoplites were relentless and clearly superior on the walls. Our marines made a move for the town square, which was defended by the Cretan archon, leading to the defenders calling back units to help on that front. However, they would just get cut down by our cavalry. The incredible offensive was not without sacrifice, as Isocrates, the statesman in charge of the marines, fell right before the Cretans surrendered. Furthermore, we lost pretty much all of our cavalry, but so be it. The archon survived, and the new admiral Cleisthenes, as you also will experience soon enough, had more flair for military thinking. During these early years of the campaign, this island would consist of wheat fields and fishing docks to establish some form of trade good to bargain with. But our mind remained on a wish of constructing a mighty fleet. And for that to be a reality, it is known you have to possess the Colossus of Rhodes. So we set sail once again just to quickly return back to Crete after realizing how powerful the Rhodians actually were. But it was an advantage the island nation seemingly also knew as well, as they shortly after declared war on us. But as our coffers were less valuable than Spartan thinkers, we sought out funding from Pergamon by agreeing to a non-aggression pact, which basically felt like prostitution to us. This gold was spent on new cavalry units. But our little plan of building up a new army to overpower the Rhodians faded away as they continued to increase their numbers. We had to make a move now, so we set sail and embezzled a bit of money to spend on additional mercenaries while we raided their lands to lure them out into a battle near the coast. A scheme that succeeded as we saw the Rhodians close in on our position. We deployed our forces with their back to the coast in an effort to create an all-or-nothing mentality for our hoplites. Our elite marines landed behind our lines and would take on the role as reserve units. The engagement began on the left, where our slingers fired upon the Rhodian cavalry, which led to a massive attack with multiple units involved. The real struggle was in the middle, where our hoplites were no match for the hostile mercenary pikemen. Or that was the case until our lightly armored hoplites managed to flank around to slowly envelop the hostiles. The Athenian Archon in charge of this battle secured a heroic victory this day. With the Rhodians this vulnerable again, we immediately went on the offensive to take out the rest of their forces, granting us control over the Colossus of Rhodes and their famous port, which allowed us to construct even larger ships than the ones we already had. Furthermore, our Archon developed this skill in statecraft, which helped improve relations with other nations as well as increase tariff income. This was a trend that would spread to most of our other governors throughout the years. You'll see why soon enough. Nevertheless, the Rhodians made one final attack to push us back, but it was too late for them. Athens ruled the Aegean now, just like we always wanted. The Athenian fleet was now by far the strongest in the Greek realm, and it would quickly see action against the Illyrian pirates, whom we actually are at war with due to our client state status to the Macedonians. However, we just expanded our fleet to then afterwards intercept the Illyrians. It was quite a messy battle. Although we did manage to ram some of the ships, some of our own actually got boarded, leaving many of our trirees getting stuck. But we had prepared for such a scenario, keeping multiple ships in reserve to intervene, meaning we quickly got the upper hand again. And this scored another heroic victory. These last two naval battles were prime examples of how clever Colonize truly was in terms of naval warfare. After this battle, the rest of our enemies were so far away it allowed us to expand our ports in peace. We disbanded most of our mercenaries so we could afford to also expand the port of Rhodes. So with our newfound power, and as the opportunity to declare independence revealed itself to us, we took it without any consequences. The Macedonians simply didn't have the power to stop us, so they just set us free. And if you remember what I said earlier, we had an ambition of a second age of Hellenic colonization. Now was the time. As we didn't have to pay tribute anymore, it freed our coffers that, along with a very high taxation policy over the next couple of years, allowed us to create this incredible fleet. During this time of independence, we also made peace with the Illyrians, meaning we were in the perfect position to begin fulfilling our ambition. And so it was. In the spring of 272 BC, our two fleets, led by the naval genius Cleisthenes and the brother of the Archon Glaucus, set sail from Greece towards the western lands. But the real question was where to establish our first colony. Perhaps Sicily, along with Syracuse and the other Greek colonies established there so long ago? No. Apart from Syracuse being destroyed, a major conflict between the two nations known as Carthage and Rome was roaring throughout these waters. Clearly, establishing a colony anywhere near this war would result in our own warriors being drawn into conflict. Not exactly what we want. We sailed west again, further than any Greek ever did. We sailed past many lucrative locations such as Ibosim, Mastia or Tingis. The only issue was the Carthaginians held control over these locations. We simply couldn't afford to engage in a conflict with a nation of that size at this point in time. After all, it would take ages for reinforcements to arrive, if ever. No, we continued past the Pillars of Heracles into the Atlantic Ocean. There was just this one issue. Our ships were running out of supplies, meaning the next port we encountered had to be where we established our colony. This turned out to be the port of Olesipo, hailed by an unknown culture to us. Guess this was it then. If we wanted our colony to succeed, we had to remove these barbarians first. Olesipo was a mighty settlement, which port was heavily fortified with archer towers guarding the coast. It had multiple layers with a major cliffside protecting the town square from naval incursions such as ours. There was also this one narrow road along the cliffside leading directly to the chieftain's hut. This city surely seemed like a challenge. So, in order to make this a bit easier, we sent forth 3 archer ships to burn down one of the towers on this cliffside here. But after realizing how easy it was to set ablaze, we sent out 3 additional ships to sail along the coastline and do the same all the way along the coast. The remaining archer ships would focus down the barbarian cavalry, making the landing of our marines just a tiny bit easier. After phase 1 of the battle, namely the landing and establishing a beachhead, was practically finalized, we began on phase 2, the battle within the streets itself. The Admiral Glaucus led a contingent of marines to block off any barbarians from reaching the beach. It led to an engagement where they were heavily outnumbered and in severe danger due to the hostile cavalry, which gave the barbarians a clear edge against our sword-exclusive marines. But while this was going on, we began ascending the cliffside towards the chieftain's hut. Further down the coast, a large portion of our marines also held off what seemed to be the elite forces of the barbarians. They practically carved through our exhausted units, leading to us deploying our archers with a couple of daggers to outflank them. As we reached the plateau of Lysipo, which resembled the Acropolis of Athens in its own way, we were met by the barbarian chieftain himself along with plenty of other cavalry units. This was a major issue as we didn't really have the quality to break through. The barbarians even got reinforcements by civilians from outside the city, who finally reached the battle. Of course, we got that too from Cleisthenes, who took command of the assault on the plateau, along with the many archers he brought with him. Glaucus was focusing on cleaning up the coastline and those elite barbarian units that previously slaughtered our forces. Once he had done that, we reached the 3rd stage of the assault, namely the plateau. 3 units of our most intact marines contingents were tasked to take the long way up to the plateau, while our new reinforcing archers took position along the cliffside. These archers had only one task: take down the barbarian cavalry. If we succeeded in doing that, nothing would stand in our way. As our flanking marines reached the 3rd level of the city, they met tough resistance by additional reinforcing townsfolk and farmers. Usually this wouldn't have been an issue, but our men were so exhausted that the fighting was quite balanced. Whenever an archer unit ran out of ammunition, they would run around as well to help in this flanking maneuver. The Battle of the Plateau was fierce, with us slowly being pushed back down the cliffside again. But by this point the barbarian chieftain had fallen, meaning once our flanking units finally made it around to encircle the last units, they surrendered.